Before I even get started, the video that we're going to be reacting to today, you should go into the description of this video, click the link to it, and watch the full video. Show some appreciation for the work, as I'm just kind of working off of what they did. What's up, guys? Today's video is actually something that I intended to talk about. I intended to make this video like probably a couple of weeks ago, but for whatever reason, it just didn't happen. And actually, I think it's going to work out better because it's allowed time for me to basically forget what happened in the video that we're going to be looking at. So you're going to get much more of a like true real-time reaction. This was MKBHD's Smartphone Awards for the year 2024. And there are a couple of specific awards, I guess is what I would say, that I think were pretty interesting and I think were pertinent to this channel. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch those sections and I'm just going to kind of react to it and tell you what I think, kind of give my maybe contrasting opinions. Where do I think Marquez was onto something? Where do maybe I disagree, if I disagree at all? And honestly, I don't really remember what he said, but obviously we're starting off with best foldable.
So that next category, conveniently, best foldable. So we added this new category last year just because it was becoming more clear than ever that foldables were, first of all, more plentiful than ever before. There's more options than ever before.
It's actually a great point because before last year, you really just had the Galaxy Z Fold device, right? And then the Pixel Fold came along, and then the OnePlus Open came along that same year. So suddenly we've got 3 options in North America. Now, of course, he's able to get his hands on and review these Chinese foldables, and there's a ton more of those. But for the average person probably watching his channel, we went from 1 option to 3 very, very quickly.
And it feels like they're here to stay, at least for a while. So let's reward the good ones. You know, at the beginning of the whole foldables category, it was kind of all Samsung. Like they had that early lead because they dove in so early. And you know, they still make the Z Fold 6, and it's a solid phone, but I wouldn't say they're holding the torch anymore. I would actually say this phone right here, this is the Honor Magic V3.
Okay, so that is a good example of those Chinese foldables. And so far, I've not used the Honor Magic V3, but from a hardware perspective, it's hard to argue anything different. The thing is absolutely insane hardware, where Samsung has, it seems like, played it fairly safe as of late.
This is kind of the mantle right now for best overall foldable hardware. There's so much good about this hardware. I mean, it's extremely thin. It feels flagship. From the lack of a crease inside to how much battery and how much camera they fit in this phone. Really, really sturdy hinge. This is a great, really solid piece.
Okay, Marquez. So is this the foldable of the year? I think most of us would agree it's probably the best hardware of the year. I believe that's basically what he said, but is it the foldable of the year?
There's also the triple fold. You know, that's a crazy design, as we already know.
I don't see that on the table, though.
I'm giving the award for best foldable of 2024 to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. I really like what Google did with the design and the hardware and the software of the second ever folding Pixel. You know,
so I have been on the record as saying that I'm not a huge fan of what they did with the design and the hardware of this foldable. Don't get me wrong. I do think that it's really, really good hardware. Like, it feels very, very solid. It feels very well made. The hinge feels good. It just feels like a very solid phone, but you guys know I was a fan of the shorter aspect ratio of the original Fold, and I'm not a big fan of this camera module. I think that it is weird looking. I think that it is ugly. Luckily, it has sort of just faded into the background. I don't really pay much attention to it anymore, but you can't convince me that that is a good looking camera module. Last year's looked better, but we'll see what Marquez, subjectively speaking, what Marquez says about these details.
It did change a lot, and it is still very usable while closed, but they trimmed up all the dimensions, they flattened the sides, they improved the hinge, the cameras are all better, and it feels...
Which is kind of weird because the cameras on a hardware perspective, I can't talk this morning, are not all better. They are largely the same, and then the ones that are updated are like lateral moves, but in practice, the camera performance is noticeably better.
Feels among the world of folding Android phones that we have right now, like the most polished. At least there's a lot of good Android stuff going on. Take advantage of the folding screen.
Now that's actually interesting. While I will agree that it does feel very, very polished, I very infrequently, I don't remember the last time I actually did, very infrequently run into bugs or sort of like hitches and stutters and problems with the device. I will say that I'm sure he's going to get pushback, probably already did get pushback, on this last bit here.
At least there's a lot of good Android stuff going on. Take advantage of the folding screen.
There's a lot of good Android stuff going on to take advantage of the folding screen. I don't disagree with this, right? I think that it handles split screening quite well. App pairs are finally there, but I do think that when you look at other foldable devices like the Z Fold, like the OnePlus Open, like the Honor Magic V3, they do have even more cool stuff to take advantage of that folding screen. If anything, my argument would be that Google is sort of holding back in a very Apple-like way, only delivering the features that they think most people are going to use and making sure those features are the most polished. But by doing this, they are leaving out some features that a lot of people want, things like floating windows. So that's kind of like a back and forth thing for me there. I do agree that it's probably the most polished, but it definitely doesn't have the most software to take advantage of that large screen.
Like if you forced me to use a folding phone right now, as much as I would want the hardware of the Honor, I would pick the Pixel Fold. And I came close to dailying this phone for quite a while in this year. Really big fan of this phone.
So the next category, and the only other one that we're going to look at, is most improved. And I think that some of you can probably make a prediction about where we are headed with this, but nonetheless.
So next category, one that's been here again for all 10 of these, is the most improved award. The most improved year over year. I mean, you have the Oppo Find X8 Pro, which, okay, much brighter screen this year. They've got improved cameras. This new back is really nice, and also it's got the new chipset. I don't know if it's gonna win most improved though. The base iPhones were in consideration for this one. The iPhone 16, this generation, did the most relative to the previous base iPhone to get it close to the pros.
I just want to quickly say, I'm not an iPhone user, but I do think that this is the best looking iPhone I've seen in a really long time. I'm not a fan of the stovetop look of the cameras that we have on most iPhones. Cutting it down to two, putting them vertical, I actually really like the way that that iPhone looks.
It's pretty clear though, the most improved smartphone over last year's version, yeah, that is definitely the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. The
Two in a row.
foldable Pixel was something we'd wanted for a long time, and the first Pixel Fold last year was a cool idea, right? Like we all wanted to see it and Google finally delivered it. But if we're being honest with ourselves, it didn't really excel in any way with the hardware especially. Like it was cool seeing Android could improve and handle the bigger screen on the inside.
I do still long for that inner screen in the sense that it is wider than it is tall. What we have now is a square, basically. It is basically a square screen, and while that's fine, I can split screen on it, and it does the job totally fine. I do really miss that wider internal display. It reminded me of Surface Duo when you split screened. It just seems like that is a more reasonable layout for multitasking. And then that shorter aspect ratio cover display, like I mentioned, really, really love that as well. Now, yes, did it get too hot at times? Yes. Was the Tensor G2 a lot slower than the Tensor G4, a lot less efficient? The battery life is better on the new one. The cameras are better on the new one. The screens are brighter on the new one. It's thinner. It's lighter. The hinge is better. I look, to me, there is no question. This is one of the most improved year-over-year devices I have ever seen. You know, when you start thinking back through the annals of time, year-over-year improvements, this has got to be among the top end.
But I mean, that thing had some pretty thick bezels in there. It didn't even
The
fold
bezels!
flat. I'm gonna say that again. It didn't even fold flat. So the second generation Pixel Fold here represents a glow up in every single way. Like every square millimeter of this got better. I think a lot of us were expecting to see a second generation OnePlus foldable, but they just didn't make it. But this is kind of the closest I think we could see to that. Much better cameras, much better thinner hinge. The whole thing is skinnier. The bezels on the inside are much better. It folds flat. There's less crease. The outside screen is better.
It folded flat last year too. It didn't open flat for everyone all the time without some additional pressure, but it did fold flat last year too.
It's brighter. Everything is better. So just from inside to outside, well done, Google.
I would absolutely, totally agree with that. Perhaps one day I will review enough phones in a calendar year to do my own smartphone awards. It's actually kind of funny when you look at this table of phones. There's a little bit of professional jealousy that might creep in there for me. I've got my little phone collection, but man, every year he's topping he's topping what I've accumulated throughout my lifetime. So it is what it is. Maybe one day I'll be able to do the same, but for now, look, not everybody loves Marquez Brownlee's content. I think that he's still one of the top tech tubers around, and I think that his opinion on these things does have sway with a lot of people, and I think that Google has definitely accomplished something to be able to win these awards from someone who is as influential as MKBHD. I mean, 4.6 million views in 3 weeks. That's a lot of people that just heard him say that the Pixel 9 Pro Fold was his favorite foldable of the year and that it was the most improved device year over year. I mean, that's a big deal. I do want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And I mean, honestly, some of you guys must be like neurosurgeons or something, because I get comments from people who have probably spent $6 or $8 grand a year on foldable phones. So some of you have used all of them. Let me know in those comments how you think that the Pixel stacked up. Does this sort of sway you one way or the other? Hearing someone like Marquez make these statements, how big of a deal is that to you? Lots of interesting things to talk about down there, guys. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.